Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Chad and Corey here, getting an update on West Red Lake Gold Mines. It's traded on the TSX.V under the ticker WRLG and on the OTCQB under the ticker WRLGF. And we are joined today with the VP of Exploration, Will Robinson. And Will, you're out on site in Red Lake right now, and I think it's a good time to discuss the drill results you just released to the market on June 11th. And you had some really nice hits in the South Austin zone. And we've had a couple conversations with you where we've been talking about the North Austin zone, the Austin Main, and this new South Austin zone. You continue to put out good drill results, but overall, how are you seeing the continuity of this whole Austin deposit area tying together? Because this is the area the company's looking at as far as when you do develop for West Red Lake Gold to get back into production.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thanks, guys. Great to be back. Yeah, so the results we put out yesterday were pretty spectacular. We were very happy with those results. As you pointed out, 16.7 grams over 8 meters. We had another one of just over 6 grams at almost 18 meters, 7.5 grams over 12 meters. So, the thing to point out with that is like these are very broad intercepts, 8 meters, 18 meters, 12 meters, very mineable widths within Madsen, nice thick zones of mineralization, of course, accentuated by some higher grade hits within that. But what this drill program is doing in South Austin is really increasing our confidence in this area of the deposit. So this is part of the definition drilling program. So a lot of this, it's essentially stope drilling ahead of mining, right? So what it's doing is it's giving us the density of data to inform the eventual, short-term planning model and the mine planning model, which then we can build our MSOs and stope shapes around. So to see these kind of grades and intercepts coming out are very encouraging for us, and we do like to see that. The other piece from that news that's exciting is we're actually defining a new lens of mineralization in the footwall of the main South Austin zone. So this is kind of a new zone that we're tapping into. We've got 10 drill holes that have hit it, and it was sort of, basically it was something that we hit while targeting South Austin, but much earlier in the hole. So we're collaring in the footwall to South Austin, and then we hit this zone shortly, within 10 to 20 meters of the collar in 10 different holes. And so we've got definition on that new lens from 2 different drill bays, and we're working on infilling in between as we speak now. And so the drill's continuing to turn in South Austin, getting more resolution in this area. And then not mention this press release. This one was focused mainly on the South Austin results, but we still have the second drill in North Austin drilling away as well.
To your point about this new lens, we can see that in that figure one. I believe it comes right at the bottom of all that drilling there. Look, the South Austin zone already has about 500,000 ounces, mostly in indicated, over 470,000 ounces in the indicated category at almost 9 grams per ton. Is there still room to expand this, even though this is more de-risking drilling?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that's exciting about this too, if you are looking at the figure plan view, the block model and the deposit kind of follows that unconformity between the Balmer assemblage, which would be to the northwest, and then the obviously the Confederation to the east. So drilling out further into the Balmer to the northeast, that's all blue sky there. So we're seeing a lot of brownfield opportunity to throw in what we're calling, wildcat holes out into this prospective geology. And you can even see in one of the drill holes in the press release, I think it's hole MM24D-09-4098-020. And there's actually a couple of hits further out footwall to the new zone, or the new lens that we're defining. So 0.6 meters at 3.6 grams and another meter at 4 grams. So not necessarily high grade, but definitely indicating that there's something there. So we're continuing to explore from these areas while also, accomplishing our definition goals within the main deposit.
Well, Will, I think it'd be nice to highlight again. We've maybe touched on this briefly in the past, but it's a key point that historically in Red Lake, the Balmer Assembly was where most of the action was. That's where most companies looked for the gold. But that Confederation package of rocks, that Confederation Assembly, that really changed when Great Bear started making their discoveries and started hitting gold in areas that people weren't looking for it before. So maybe speak to the opportunity you have in really both areas to expand the resources at West Red Lake Gold.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing some indications, some historic drilling intercepts from the 80s in the Confederation off of some of the historic levels of the Madsen deposit that are very encouraging. A little bit too early to talk about. We would like to get some more modern drilling into some of these areas to validate those historic intercepts, but definitely encouraging to see the mineralization there. And it's from the old historic logs, it's the same style of mineralization that we see within Madsen as well, which is also very encouraging. So that's in the Confederation. And we had put out a release earlier in the year, just kind of outlining the strategy for the regional work. And so we just completed some regional mapping and soil sampling and rock sampling, mainly focused in the Confederation package and trying to get some more geologic resolution out in that area and actually generate some new targets, because there's been quite a bit of work done in the Balmer rocks on the Madsen property, but very little on the other side in the Confederation, which represents about 50% of the land package. And so all of those samples are now out to assay. So we're just waiting on results for those and hopefully tie some things together and maybe drill a few later in the season.
So following up on another comment you made regarding the thickness of the South Austin zone, some of the higher grade material in these thicker portions, news release even says the higher tonnage mining methods can be used. That reduces overall mining costs. Can you carry this over, not just to the South Austin zone, but some of these other zones?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we expect, zones like this to exist within South Austin, Austin. North Austin is a little bit narrower, but still has exceptional grades and portions. But yeah, anywhere within the main deposit, you can get these blowouts where you get these nice thicknesses that are also supported by, what we would believe to be mineable grades. Obviously, we need to have a mine plan in place before we can, state that. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the cross sections, I think really speak to that within the press release to give a more accurate representation of the thickness of what we're showing. There would be the 2021 mineral resource estimate, or the resource model from December 2021, which was the SRK model. That's the model that we have been using to portray the results, because it's the one that's been publicly released. And the model has not changed since that time as far as the resource estimate. So if you look at it in plan view, it can be a little bit skewed, but in section view, you do get a pretty accurate representation of the thickness of the zone relative to the intercepts that we're releasing in the drill holes.
Well, you bring up an interesting point there, that since you're using the resource model from 2021, you've done so much drilling since then. And like you just alluded to there, when you kind of dial into some of these plan sections a little closer, you get a bit more clear picture. But are you going to be updating the resource anytime soon with incorporating all the drilling you're doing, all this definition drilling, and also some of the regional drilling? I think a lot of people would probably like to know how things sit today after all the work your team has already done on the exploration front.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the definition drilling that we're doing now is really going towards informing our internal short-term planning model, which is a much, higher resolution model based loosely on the MRE model, or the life of mine model, which we show here. But it's definitely got more detail incorporated into it. And there's actually two phases past the MRE model of refinement on the shapes for the domains, and then those then get handed off to the engineers for MSO and stope design. And so we're not actually building the mine design or our internal mine design on the life of mine model. So this is pretty common at most operating mines. So that's sort of the phased approach that we take. And so it can be a little bit misleading looking at the MRE model without understanding that we actually take the drill results and refine that model further for what we're actually using for mine planning at site. And as far as an MRE update on the overall deposit, that'll probably come when we get a chance to do more expansion drilling and actually, add significant growth in different areas of the deposit. So that will come after this de-risking phase, where we actually step out and do more growth-oriented type drilling, start defining some of these new zones that we've come across just with the, some of the expansion and definition drilling that we've completed to date since last October.
We'll just take a quick step back and catch everybody up on what the difference is here in terms of the drilling that West Red Lake has done, focused on this restart of the mine in the second half of next year, and how that has added and changed what was done by the past operator, please.
Yeah, for sure. So the whole purpose of the drilling that we've been doing since October, I mean, it has been twofold. We have expansion targets, North Austin be one of those. There's areas within South Austin that were growth areas as well. But our real primary objective here is defining a runway of high confidence ounces, at least 1 year's worth runway. And we're well on track to accomplishing that goal. We were trying to define roughly 55 to 60,000 ounces for the first year of startup. And we've accomplished that feat basically already at mid-year point. And so up until this point, the drilling has been definition oriented for the most part in order to give us the density of drilling within the highest priority areas of the deposit, and in order to inform the short-term planning model, which then goes into the detailed stope design. So we just, the drilling density didn't exist in a lot of these like higher priority areas of the deposit because, Pure Gold never got a chance to get down into a lot of those areas because the development went through McVeigh initially, and then they were just getting into the top of South Austin towards the end there and actually started to get on their feet a little bit, but it was just too little too late. So what we've been doing is the mine team at site with the development has really been in full support of the drilling, getting the drills where they need to go, at depth into deposit, into this North Austin area, into the South Austin area, in order to give us a platform to effectively drill off these zones. So that's been the primary objective, is the de-risking.
Well, Will, one more, I guess, more on the blue sky side of the drilling that people still have questions about, and rightly so, and are excited about, is another area that's got a high-grade pocket, and that's the 8 zone. We've alluded to it a little bit before, but I know you're getting closer this summer to being able to put some drills there from underground, and it's a lot different to try to drill that target that's concise and consolidated from underground versus at surface. So maybe just speak to the upside in an area like the 8 zone.
Yeah, definitely. We're planning to drill 8 zone in the second half of this year, probably towards September in that time frame. And as you pointed out, being able to drill that target from underground will be a huge advantage. It'll shorten the holes from 1,500 meters down to around 600 to 700 meters. So it gives us much more control on the deviation. And when you're shooting at a discrete target like 8 zone, it's sort of a rod-shaped feature, very similar to geologically similar, at least, to the high-grade zone at the Red Lake complex. Getting as close as you can to target that is definitely going to be beneficial. So yeah, we're very excited about it. It's a high-grade part of the resource, around 100,000 ounces at 15 to 18 grams per ton. And so yeah, we're excited to get a couple of holes into that before the end of the year for sure.
Any other blue sky drilling that investors should be aware of that obviously would come later in the mine plan, depending on what was hit?
Yeah, I mean, some of these new zones that we're defining, the footwall lens in South Austin is particularly exciting for us. So we'll continue to grow that. We'll probably add some holes just for that purpose, and then continue to tag it as we target South Austin. So we're getting sort of 2 birds with 1 stone in that respect. The North Austin drilling has been going well. We've been seeing, that zone continue down plunge to the east, and so we'll continue growing that part of the resource also. But outside of that, as I mentioned, we've got some of the regional targeting work that just got completed. And as soon as we get assays back from a lot of the soils and the grab sampling that was done as part of that program, hopefully we'll have some targets generated from that and maybe do some actual testing of entirely new targets later in the year.
All right, so it sounds like a lot of different drilling, a lot of targets, and a lot of news to come from the exploration side. Well, let's also pivot over to the news you put out last week that was really on the 2024 Madsen mine plans. You put a lot of updates in here that the market's been interested in as far as some of the key things you're doing on the development side. Maybe let's start with the connection drift and that you can do exploration while you're doing development, 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, the connection drift is an essential piece of infrastructure for the mine. And basically what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to connect the east and the west parts of the mine. We currently have, 2 portals, 2 declines, and of course a shaft as well. But those 2 sides of the mine are not connected. And so, back when Pure Gold was operating, they were bringing material, say they were mining in South Austin or even McVeigh, for instance. They would bring material to surface, then have to truck it quite a long distance over 2 county roads to get to the crusher. So the connection drift will allow us to bypass all of that. So it'll really be like a main artery or a main lifeline for the mine when it's in operation. And the other nice thing about the connection drift is it qualifies for flow-through expenditures, so CDE, which is Canadian Development Expenditures. And, that gives us a little bit of an advantage as far as being able to spend the flow-through money on, an essential piece of infrastructure like that, as opposed to hard dollars. So that's also beneficial for sure. And, worth noting, there will be some drilling opportunities off of the connection drift as well. So it's a 1.2 kilometer drift, and it's basically providing us a transect hanging wall to the main deposit. And so we'll be able to get some drilling opportunities as well off of that.
So one key news event that is coming up, what's targeted for early 2025, is that pre-feasibility study that will detail that restart plan, provide some more numbers around that, some hard dollar numbers, I believe. What more work needs to go into that? Are there any news events leading up to this pre-feasibility study that we can keep an eye out for that gives us maybe a little insight into what's coming?
Yeah, we expect it to be quite favorable. I mean, all the infrastructure is already in place, so there won't be the big and significant infusion of CapEx required to build a mine, for instance. So we expect that to be an advantage. SRK had already done quite a bit of the work for Pure Gold, actually, regarding infrastructure, water treatment, metallurgy. A lot of those boxes are already checked. So it's a little bit more of a streamlined PFS than starting from scratch. But as far as milestones related to the PFS, we'll probably wait until we have that report and that study completed in hand before we bring that out to market. But as far as putting the pieces in place for the eventual restart, we'll definitely be informing the community on whenever we bring in the primary crusher, for instance, like some of these big capital essential pieces of infrastructure that we're going to be doing. Primary crusher, a camp, for instance, all of these things are moving forward and we've sourced and we're just working on acquiring those now. So yeah, we're excited to keep everybody up to date as we put these essential pieces in place, gearing up for that restart.
Well, Will, just as we wrap up, let's maybe summarize it for folks as far as the key catalyst coming down the pike, as far as all the different drilling and exploration work and development work the company is doing. What are the key things you want investors to clue in on for the balance of 2024 and moving into next year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the PFS is going to be the big one that everybody should be watching for. Still a little ways out on that, but as I mentioned, a lot of these key pieces of infrastructure, as those come in to the mine and get installed in the various areas, we'll be updating, the markets and our shareholders and investors on all of that news. Drilling will be ongoing, so we're still going to have a steady stream of news flow from the underground drills at Madsen. We're going to have some regional drilling as well. Rowan is still on the table potentially for this year, and then some regional work around Madsen also. So a lot of news, really. But I think the really exciting thing at this point for us is now we're transitioning from this, exploration developer phase and really pivoting into full mine restart mode. So everybody's aligned on that. We've got a little over 100 people or personnel at site working now. We're bringing in another crew to successfully complete this connection drift underground. So a lot of things are happening, and it's definitely exciting times for the company.
Well, we'll keep following along with all the news as it comes out from West Red Lake Gold. And if people listening into this call would like to follow along, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you right over to the website, to the news section, and will keep us abreast of more assay results as they come back in. We'll get you back on to dive into the exploration, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Likewise. Yeah. Thanks again, guys. Always a pleasure.